Why do we need to go to the depths of the ocean in this way?
Well, the oceans constitute 70% of our planet, and of those oceans, 80% are still unexplored. So half of the world is still completely unexplored.
Nearly 8,000 meters below the Atlantic Ocean, in a place so deep that sunlight has never reached it, scientists made a discovery that completely changed how we understand our planet. This place is the Puerto Rico Trench, the deepest point in the Atlantic Ocean. For decades, scientists believed they understood how this part of the Earth worked. But when researchers finally explored the trench in detail, they uncovered something shocking. Hidden beneath the dark waters were evidence of ancient mega-earthquakes, massive tsunamis, strange deep-sea creatures once mistaken for fish, and entire ecosystems surviving under crushing pressure. Some discoveries were so unexpected that they forced scientists to rewrite long-standing theories about the ocean floor and life itself. But perhaps the most unsettling discovery is this: the forces shaping the Puerto Rico Trench are still active today. And if scientists are right, the trench could one day produce a mega-earthquake capable of sending tsunami waves across the Atlantic Ocean. So what exactly lies hidden in the deepest part of the Atlantic? And why are scientists now paying closer attention to this mysterious underwater canyon than ever before? Let's dive into the astonishing discoveries made in the Puerto Rico Trench. The Puerto Rico Trench is not just the deepest place in the Atlantic Ocean. It is also one of the most geologically dangerous regions on Earth. Stretching for more than 800 kilometers, this massive underwater trench forms where the North American tectonic plate slides beneath the Caribbean plate. This process, known as subduction, slowly builds enormous stress deep beneath the ocean floor. And when that stress is released, it can produce some of the largest earthquakes on the planet. For years, scientists suspected that powerful earthquakes had occurred in this region in the past. But the real proof came from an unexpected place: a quiet mangrove pond in northwestern Puerto Rico. In 2023, researchers from the U.S. Geological Survey and the University of Puerto Rico collected sediment cores from a coastal site called East Bajura. These cores act like natural history books, preserving layers of sediment deposited over hundreds or even thousands of years. As scientists examined the samples, they discovered something unusual. Buried within the layers of mud was a thick band of sand nearly half a meter deep. At first glance, it looked ordinary. But closer analysis revealed features that told a dramatic story. The base of the layer had been violently eroded, suggesting powerful water movement. The sand grains were graded, meaning the largest particles had settled first, while finer material lay above them. And mixed within the sand were marine microfossils alongside terrestrial plant debris. This combination could only mean one thing. At some point in the past, a massive wave had surged inland, carrying ocean sediment deep into coastal wetlands. In other words, this was evidence of a prehistoric tsunami. Radiocarbon dating revealed that this event occurred sometime between 1470 and 1530 CE. But the discovery became even more intriguing when scientists looked beyond Puerto Rico. On nearby islands, including the Virgin Islands and Anegada in the British Virgin Islands, researchers had previously discovered unusual deposits of coral fragments and massive mollusk shells scattered far inland, sometimes more than a kilometer from the shoreline. These coral boulders were far too large to be moved by storms or hurricanes. Instead, geological dating placed them within a similar time period, between 1200 and 1480 CE. When scientists combined these discoveries with advanced geological models, the conclusion became clear. Only a massive megathrust earthquake, likely measuring magnitude 8 to 9, could have generated a tsunami powerful enough to create these deposits. To produce waves of that size, the earthquake would have needed to rupture 300 to 400 kilometers of the trench floor. That's comparable to some of the largest earthquakes ever recorded on Earth, including the devastating 2004 Indian Ocean earthquake that triggered one of the deadliest tsunamis in modern history. The evidence suggests that the Puerto Rico Trench has experienced rare but catastrophic seismic events capable of sending tsunami waves across the Caribbean. But earthquakes are not the only threat lurking beneath the trench. Here, specialized bacteria perform chemosynthesis, converting chemicals like hydrogen sulfide and methane into energy. These microbes form the base of a unique food web that supports crustaceans, mollusks, tube worms, and other strange organisms found nowhere else on Earth. Hydrothermal vent ecosystems are among the most fascinating environments known to science. They show that life does not necessarily need sunlight to exist, only energy and the right chemical conditions. For scientists, these discoveries have enormous implications. Studying these extreme environments may help us understand how life began on early Earth, and even guide the search for life on other worlds. Moons such as Europa and Enceladus, which hide vast oceans beneath their icy surfaces, may contain environments very similar to the deep trenches of Earth's oceans. In other words, exploring places like the Puerto Rico Trench may not only teach us about our own planet, it may help answer one of humanity's greatest questions. Are we alone in the universe? And yet, despite everything scientists have already discovered, the truth is that we have explored less than 20% of the world's oceans, which means that somewhere in the vast darkness beneath the waves, there may still be entire ecosystems, geological forces, and life forms waiting to be discovered. The Puerto Rico Trench reminds us that even on our own planet, the greatest mysteries may still lie hidden in the depths. An event of that scale would be powerful enough to send tsunami waves across the Caribbean, and potentially even across the Atlantic Ocean. And earthquakes are not the only danger. Detailed sonar mapping of the trench walls has revealed enormous underwater landslides and collapse scars along the steep carbonate slopes north of Puerto Rico. Some of these slump scars measure 7 kilometers long and 3 kilometers wide. When such massive sections of sediment suddenly collapse, they can displace enormous volumes of water, triggering tsunamis even without a major earthquake. Together, these discoveries paint a picture of a trench that is constantly evolving, shaped by powerful geological forces far beneath the ocean floor. Yet despite the intense tectonic activity, life somehow manages to survive here. In fact, some of the smallest organisms discovered in the trench may be the most extraordinary of all. Because hidden within the sediments of the Puerto Rico Trench are microbes capable of surviving pressures that would crush almost any other life on Earth. And their existence is changing how scientists understand the limits of life itself. If the earthquakes and tectonic forces of the Puerto Rico Trench reveal the power of our planet, the life found there reveals something equally astonishing: the incredible resilience of life itself. At depths exceeding 8,000 meters, the trench lies within what scientists call the Hadal Zone, one of the most extreme environments on Earth. Here, pressure reaches more than 700 times the pressure at sea level, temperatures hover just above freezing, and sunlight has never penetrated the darkness. For a long time, scientists believed that very little life could survive under such brutal conditions. But recent research has proven the opposite. In fact, the Puerto Rico Trench is home to complex microbial ecosystems that challenge our understanding of the limits of life. Using advanced techniques like single-cell genomics and metagenomic sequencing, researchers have begun analyzing microbes collected from depths of more than 8,200 meters. What they discovered was remarkable. These microbes possess genomes far larger and more complex than those of similar organisms living near the ocean's surface. Surface microbes typically have genomes measuring around 1.7 to 1.8 megabases. But microbes from the Puerto Rico Trench often exceed 3.5 megabases. This expanded genetic toolkit allows them to survive in an environment where energy is scarce and conditions are constantly hostile. Many of these organisms are capable of mixotrophy, meaning they can switch between different metabolic strategies depending on what resources are available. Some oxidize hydrogen or methane, while others utilize nitrous oxide or sulfur compounds as alternative energy sources. These metabolic pathways allow them to extract energy from chemicals in the water and sediment, a process that keeps the deep ecosystem functioning even in total darkness. In addition, their genomes contain large numbers of genes related to stress response, oxygen sensing, and nutrient transport, helping them survive under extreme pressure and low oxygen levels. These microbes form the foundation of the trench's food web, recycling organic material that slowly sinks from the ocean's surface. But that organic material does not always arrive as tiny particles. Sometimes it arrives as something much larger. Scientists using remotely operated vehicles, ROVs, have discovered deep-sea scavengers feeding on unexpected food sources, including fragments of sargassum seaweed that drift down from the surface ocean. One particularly fascinating creature involved in this process is a deep-sea isopod known as Bathynomus-like species, such as Bupsurus nibelini. These shrimp-like scavengers have been filmed at depths between 5,000 and 6,200 meters, actively shredding pieces of sinking seaweed. Their serrated mouthparts allow them to tear apart the tough fibers of the algae, while specialized gut microbes help break down complex carbohydrates that most animals cannot digest. This discovery revealed something surprising about the deep ocean. Even though the Hadal zone is incredibly isolated, it is still connected to surface ecosystems through the slow downward transport of organic material. And sometimes that material feeds entire communities of deep-sea life. But perhaps the most spectacular discovery near the Puerto Rico Trench came in 2022, when scientists diving in the research submersible Alvin identified something never before seen in this part of the Atlantic. They discovered hydrothermal vents. Located along the slopes of the trench at depths of around 6,400 meters, these vents release superheated, mineral-rich fluids from beneath the Earth's crust. When these fluids mix with the icy seawater, they form towering mineral chimneys and support entire ecosystems powered not by sunlight, but by chemistry. In some parts of the trench, researchers have even observed mounds of sediment nearly 40 centimeters wide and 25 centimeters tall, likely created by the feeding activity of these animals. Their constant movement across the seafloor plays a crucial ecological role. By reworking sediment and recycling organic matter, these sea cucumbers help maintain the delicate balance of nutrients in one of Earth's most extreme ecosystems. And perhaps the most remarkable aspect of all is the environment they inhabit. At depths of over 7,000 meters, pressure reaches levels that would instantly crush most organisms. Yet these creatures thrive in complete darkness, freezing temperatures, and crushing pressure, demonstrating biological adaptations that scientists are only beginning to understand. But the mysteries of the Puerto Rico Trench go far beyond unusual sea cucumbers. Deep beneath the ocean surface, scientists discovered something even more puzzling: a massive gravitational anomaly hidden beneath the trench. And it may hold clues to some of the most powerful earthquakes our planet can produce. While the strange life forms of the Puerto Rico Trench fascinated biologists, geologists studying the region uncovered something even more extraordinary hidden beneath the ocean floor. Deep below the trench lies one of the most powerful gravitational anomalies on Earth. Scientists call it a negative free air gravity anomaly. And the one located near the Puerto Rico Trench is the largest of its kind anywhere on the planet. This anomaly stretches across the seafloor about 50 kilometers south of the trench axis, reaching depths of nearly 7,950 meters. But what exactly does that mean? Simply put, gravity in this region is slightly weaker than expected. This might sound strange, but it reveals something important about what is happening deep inside the Earth. The explanation lies in the movement of tectonic plates. The Puerto Rico Trench sits along a complex boundary where the North American plate is slowly being forced beneath the Caribbean plate. This process, known as subduction, bends the descending plate downward as it sinks into the Earth's mantle. Imagine pushing one end of a rigid sheet downward. The sheet begins to flex and curve. A similar process occurs here, except the sheet is an enormous slab of oceanic crust tens of kilometers thick. As the North American plate bends and sinks, it creates a massive downward pull within the Earth's crust, a force that produces the unusual gravity signature detected by scientists. But the trench is not a simple subduction zone. The plates here do not collide head-on. Instead, they move at an oblique angle of roughly 10 to 20 degrees relative to the trench. Because of this angled motion, two different types of tectonic movement occur at the same time. First, the North American plate continues to slide beneath the Caribbean plate. Second, the plates also move sideways past each other in a left lateral strike-slip motion, similar to the movement along California's San Andreas Fault. This combination of movements makes the Puerto Rico Trench one of the most complicated plate boundaries on Earth. Over millions of years, these forces have dramatically reshaped the region. Geological evidence shows that an ancient carbonate platform, which originally formed in shallow tropical seas millions of years ago, has been slowly tilted northward by about 4 to 5 degrees. What was once a relatively flat seafloor has now been bent downward, forming a steep underwater cliff that plunges to around 4,000 meters below the surface. But the most intriguing discovery came from seismic monitoring and gravity measurements. Scientists began to notice patterns suggesting that the descending tectonic plate might actually be tearing apart deep beneath the trench. This theory emerged after researchers observed clusters of small earthquakes occurring at specific depths beneath the trench. In 2007, two significant earthquake swarms were recorded in April and July. These swarms revealed something unusual. At depths between 50 and 100 kilometers, the stress patterns showed tension running parallel to the trench. But deeper down, between 100 and 150 kilometers, the stress shifted direction and became perpendicular to the trench. This sudden change in stress orientation strongly suggests that the descending slab of crust may be fracturing into separate segments. In other words, the tectonic plate beneath the Puerto Rico Trench might be splitting apart deep underground. Such slab tears are extremely important because they can dramatically alter how stress builds within the Earth. Instead of being released gradually through small earthquakes, the accumulated stress could eventually rupture in massive megathrust earthquakes. Geological modeling indicates that if a rupture extended along 300 to 400 kilometers of the trench, it could generate an earthquake approaching magnitude 9. High-resolution mapping of the seafloor has revealed enormous underwater landslides, some stretching 7 kilometers long and 3 kilometers wide. These submarine collapses can suddenly displace vast amounts of water, creating tsunamis even without a major earthquake. In fact, many scientists now believe that the trench's steep slopes are constantly shifting, slowly building up the potential for future disasters. And because millions of people live along the Caribbean coastline, understanding these hidden geological processes is more important than ever. But the Puerto Rico Trench holds more surprises than just earthquakes and tsunamis. When scientists finally began exploring its depths, they discovered something far stranger. Creatures that researchers once believed were deep-sea fish turned out to be something completely different. For decades, the Puerto Rico Trench was not only mysterious because of its geology, it was also known for a puzzling biological observation that scientists struggled to explain. Back in 1964, a researcher named Perez conducted one of the earliest deep-sea surveys in the trench. During the expedition, scientists observed something astonishing. At a depth of about 7,300 meters, nearly 7 kilometers beneath the ocean's surface, they spotted what appeared to be large swarms of fish. Along a 1-mile transect of the trench floor, the team estimated they had seen around 200 individuals. For such an extreme environment, where pressures exceed 700 times the pressure at sea level, temperatures hover around 2 degrees Celsius, and sunlight never reaches. This density of fish seemed extraordinary. Naturally, scientists concluded that these creatures must have been snailfish, a type of deep-sea fish already known to inhabit some of the deepest parts of the ocean. But there was one problem. No specimens were ever collected. The observation relied entirely on visual interpretation, and for more than 50 years, the scientific community accepted the assumption that snailfish dominated the deepest ecosystem of the Puerto Rico Trench. That assumption remained unchallenged until 2019, when deep-sea explorer Victor Vescovo descended into the trench using the submersible DSV limiting factor. The limiting factor is one of the few vehicles in the world capable of reaching Hadal depths, the extreme zone of the ocean deeper than 6,000 meters. When its high-definition cameras began recording the trench floor, scientists expected to finally capture clear footage of the mysterious snailfish. Instead, they saw something completely different. The creatures covering the seafloor were not fish at all. They were sea cucumbers. More specifically, they were deep-sea holothurians, belonging to a group known as elasmopodid sea cucumbers, many of which belong to the genus Peniagone. These animals look nothing like the typical sea cucumbers found in shallow waters. Their bodies are soft, ribbon-like, and semi-transparent, allowing them to glide slowly across the seabed in graceful, undulating motions. From a distance, especially in the limited visibility of early deep-sea cameras, their movements could easily resemble swimming fish. This explained why scientists decades earlier had mistaken them for snailfish. But the most surprising discovery wasn't simply their identity. It was their incredible abundance. In some areas of the trench floor, researchers observed hundreds of these sea cucumbers spread across relatively small patches of sediment. This meant that the Puerto Rico Trench supported far more benthic biomass than scientists had previously expected. Further analysis of historical photographs and dive footage revealed that the trench actually hosts multiple types of holothurians, each with distinct shapes and behaviors. Marine biologist Heather Stewart identified at least 3 different morphotypes. One type appears similar to species such as Pseudostechopus or Mesothuria, measuring roughly 10 to 12 centimeters long. These animals have elongated bodies and move slowly while searching the seafloor for food. Another type is a flat, ribbon-shaped holothurian, rarely seen but distinctive in its flattened body and smooth movement across the mud. A third type is even more unusual, long cylindrical sea cucumbers up to 30 centimeters in length, leaving behind deep spiral trails in the sediment as they move. These creatures are deposit feeders, meaning they consume the organic material that settles onto the ocean floor from above. In the deep ocean, food is extremely scarce. Tiny particles of decaying plants, plankton, and dead animals drift slowly downward from the surface, a process scientists call marine snow. When these particles reach the trench floor, holothurians use their tentacle-like feeding structures and tube feet to gather and process the nutrient-rich sediment.